Well, hi everybody, this is Tom Piggott, and I'm about to take you through about 120 years of memories from the families Piggott, the families Ford, the families Bottomley, the families Abiunis, and the small families of the Marks. These are all people that in one way or another we are connected. Whether it's DNA, brothers, sisters, great aunts, and so much more. Doesn't really matter. What matters is that there are bloodlines in every person in this next photo album that has some kind of a relationship to our existence. The photo album was presented to me by my brother George. It was a photo album that was kept by my father during World War II, Thomas A. Piggott, U.S.M.C. Staff Sergeant. It's important to realize that this is really extemporaneous. I'm going to show you what I can, show you how to use it, see if you can enjoy it. Extemporaneous in that I am not going to read any scripts. I'm simply going to talk you through the things that I am observing on this particular photo album. Bear in mind that your television may be small, so the pictures will appear to be quite small. But if you simply pause any of the video you're playing, whether on a computer or other, and simply zoom in, you'll be able to see a lot more detail. Let's begin. I'm going to assume there's a good chance that this photo album was probably picked up in Hawaii, one of the places my father was in the Marine Corps, and this was post Pearl Harbor. On the upper left, what my father called that Dad and Mom. That's in Slater Park, Rhode Island. Slater Park was a park in Rhode Island near the Dalton Theater, Pawtucket, Rhode Island to be specific. And it was a decent, kind of a zoo-like park that many people attended, complete with a carousel and more. Don't know the year of this one. Some things do have a year, so you can catch up that way. And the pictures will be in a mixed order. The next picture says Princess. Don't know what that is, but I'll bet you it's a family member. You see, they used to have nicknames for the girls back then. For example, many times you would see my father refer to Reb or Rebel. He used to say, "What's up, Reb?" Meaning rebel because she was from the South. Obviously not that far off from the end of the Civil War. Over here, my dad writes Mom and Rebel in Rhode Island. This person on the left, that's my grandmother, Carrie Piggott. And then here is Rebel, my mother. I would guess in her 20s. I'm going to flip the pages and leave the book where it is so it doesn't become awkward. Show you what I'm doing, and then I will reverse the pages because there are many more on the other side. This is my Uncle Bert. I don't know what his kibs means. That's what it says below it. My Uncle Bert turned out not to be the nicest man, but I happen to have a place in my heart for him because we were childhood buddies. We were only 10 years apart. Above, it's blank. Don't know where the picture went. It says Buster. I remember my father had a dog named Buster. Next, Parent Avenue. Talked about it an awful lot, my grandmother did. That is Carrie on the left and my young Uncle Bert on the right hand side, or this side over here. Occasionally I will stop this to take a breath and then continue on, so you'll see a little bit of a break in the video. I didn't know that my father, it appears, was a merchant marine of any kind before he went into the Marine Corps. And this was also on Parent Avenue. He dressed as a merchant marine, which I also think you could become a member of if you were in a high school situation and you wanted to join military organizations of that sort. Not sure, but I'm pretty sure. Next page. On the left, label, Rebel. ECTC was below it. That's East Carolina Teachers College, now East Carolina University. That's in Greensville, North Carolina, where my mother was born. So that looks like it could have been on the steps of one of the schools. Right in the middle, another Rebel shot. My mother again. Greensville, North Carolina. On the right, Rebel and Love Seat. I don't know what that means, but that's what my father wrote. Tom Piggott sat here. ECTC again. It must have been on the college grounds. And it says, the cop kicked us out. Down below. This single picture, Rebel again. And Dad. Parent Avenue again. Dad means George Piggott. George was my grandfather. And responsible for a lot of bloodlines. To the right, another blank. Labeled Rebel. Rebel again. Again, this is my mother. That was the nickname for her. And that was at Slater Park, Rhode Island as well. And this is in Providence, Rhode Island. And this is also on Parent Avenue. I think my father was in love with her because she's everywhere in this book. Providence, Rhode Island again. Somewhat of a duplicate, different pose. And once again, Rebel. That's my mother. That is Eugenia Abby Eunice Piggott. Rebel, Slater Park. You just take a close look here. Yeah, I'm not sure of the date. Some of the pictures are dated, but it's a pretty massive history. That is my mother again, up here and down here. And she was fishing. That's all. Probably somewhere in Rhode Island. On this side, it's my Aunt Polly. Sunbathing or whatever. And that is also my Aunt Polly. She claims that whatever she had there was a fish. Well, there goes my dog. I think we'll take a break. Well, we're going to start getting into some war pictures, World War II, with my dad and some of his friends. Very difficult to tell who is who. But apparently these are all of the places that my father went to besides Iwo Jima. He was moved around a lot. I'll read what it says. Hagen-Goff, G-O-P-H, Boat Basin. I'd have to look it up. I believe that's my father on the right. This is J. Savini. That must be the name of a person, I can't tell. And this is my dad in Savini. Could have been training, could have been the war. Once again, now this says Bert Goff, Boat Basin. I'm not sure what that means. I do know that my Uncle Bert entered the Marine Corps and did not make it. And then I think he was in the Army for a short time, so that could be related. Same thing here, Rick Frio, Savini. But it says Savini, Maine, unless he means me. And then the name Mick. Yeah, a lot of this is going to be something we're going to have to decipher because it's just not possible to remember all of this and to determine from the pictures and the little bit of data that I have where they really are all from. This one here says Bert and it says Goff. I have to find out what that means in our family. It looks like there was a place called Goff, and those are Army outfits, so I assumed that he was in the Army for at least some length of time. This character is named Bull. Don't know him. Hanauer. Don't know him. John something. Can't read it. Centura. Mick. Marine Camp. If you look very carefully, you see a Marine right in the middle there. Probably in basic training. I don't know. Harv. Mike. Tiger. These are all people, again, who were apparently in the service with probably my dad, because these pictures were taken by him. WP, good luck with that. Beach. Looks like the Marines parading on the beach here are having some kind of a celebration. Sorry, gotta take a break. Once again, when I'm going through these pictures, you're going to find a tremendous number of military pictures from my dad, primarily. Iwo Jima, he's in the far right over here. And for some reason, they're standing next to a poster, which is common in the military to hang a poster of a pretty girl. That's Lulu. Radio Man Brown, Vet of Invasions. Well, I can't tell you very much about this. I've read it. I don't understand it all. It was obviously honoring a Navy man. And Vet of Invasions is kind of interesting. Dud once landed close to him on a Saipan beach, so he was in that war. I find it to be very interesting that that picture's in there. The interesting thing is that my grandmother Carrie's maiden name, my Uncle Bill's maiden name, my Aunt Edith's maiden name, the whole family on that side was Brown. So there's a distant relative there, I don't know. Next one, 16 Purple Hearts pinned on the Marines' Iwo Wounded. That means Iwo Jima. My father was in the Battle of Iwo Jima. He was on the island for approximately, from what I understand, 27 days. It could have been 7. The stories get mixed up. It was nothing but a piece of volcano, dirt. It was a strategic place where the Japanese had bases from which they could refuel to be able to attack the United States. It was close enough to do that. And that's how they got to Hawaii. My father was in a foxhole. He was in that time for the whole bit. He was a director of communications to direct the bombing flights to be able to take over the island. He ended up being approximately 1 block away from the raising of the flag and the famous statue in Mount Suribachi. Over here it says Rebel, Polly, Greenville, North Carolina. Picture missing. But over here is a picture with, on this side here, that is my Aunt Polly, and with my mother. It said Jean, ditto, Greenville, North Carolina. Sweet Sue, that's my mother. See, they used to have in those days, 20s, 30s, 40s, nicknames like Rebel, for example, Molly, Sweet Sue. That's how that came about, but that is my mother on front steps of someplace. Klaus E. Schmidt, Marine Camp. Now you have to understand that if you are a United States Marine, you begin to have a camaraderie that is unlike any in the world. It lasts a lifetime. And this was in New Jersey. Don't know him. This was also in Rhode Island. That is my father. It's Marine Thomas A. Piggott, Marine Camp. To the right, Wayne D. Stump, Marine Camp. These were obviously his friends. Samuel Decker, his friend. And it looks like Warren Wolf. So these are the people that he was probably in basic training with, or as he became a private, continued training. My father, enough said. And he only labels it me. Mick Mahoney, another Marine friend. Nickname, Lebo. Don't know him. This is an interesting insight into my father, but you're going to see some pictures that are much deeper. He was also in Hawaii for quite a while. This would be after Pearl Harbor. Hawaiian sunset. Could have been before he went off to war. I don't know. The palace in Hawaii, a painted church, and a city of refuge. It looks to me like it might have been a place for the homeless or whatever. Don't know. Little Grass Shack. He named it that way. That's an old song, Little Grass Shack. And he looked at it, and I guess that's what he called it. Loading cattle. He took a picture of some live people loading cattle. That'll probably be in Hawaii, too. Cocktail bar in Kona. Yeah, that's Hawaii for sure. And the Kona Inn. These are all places he traveled. Uli dance. Ukulele. That is important because my father played the tipple, which was a ukulele type instrument. So he obviously took a picture of a pretty girl doing her traditional dances. Nothing wrong with that. There was the golf course there. Self-explanatory. I don't get it. And that was a lagoon below Coconut Island. So he must have toured Hawaii pretty extensively. And the library, and that makes sense because my father would definitely be going to libraries. This is also Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, those are islands, and St. John's. This looks like it's all in Hawaii, the way that it looks anyway. This is blank. This is blank. This is blank. Oh. Serious pictures unlabeled. I believe this might have been in and around Iwo Jima. That's one of the foxholes, such as would be my father in. I don't know that that's him. I can't tell. But that's what would happen. We would get into a foxhole. They would cover it up in direct bombing missions, although I don't know why they have the outside stuff. This is also Iwo Jima with a grave. And over here, one of the bombers coming into the island. Wow. Obviously, these are war pictures. And I suspect Iwo Jima family and circumstances in Iwo Jima, nasty place. There are many, many more, and I'm going to get to them in a minute. Before I do, I need to straighten that out and talk to you about it. Once again, if you want to see things close up, just freeze your computer and zoom in. In this day and age of I need a photo, I need a picture, I need a photo, I need a picture, which are all very well and good to have beautiful photo memories. In addition to that memory builder is the fact that we do have the internet. We have the ability to share the pictures with many more people than we can afford otherwise. And also to do the things that we're doing that allow us to enjoy it. By the way, at the end of this verbal part of the presentation, you will be able to see the pictures that I have isolated and tried to make them a little larger for your television. We'll see how that works out. This is one of the most important documents that we have. My father was given this. It is a combat Japanese phrases communication or publication. This is the pronunciation in our language, English, of various words, vowels, consonants, commands in Japanese. This is kind of interesting. For example, if you take a look at this one, it says "saware." That means sit down. All of these are words that the Marines had to memorize in order to communicate with the Japanese during war, including sentences and including nouns and adjectives in other languages. In Japanese, Army civilian language, worker, first aid languages, food, these are, look, tabasono. That means water. And for me, dozu yukuri natte kudasai. My father taught me some Japanese, and I learned some when I was there. I was never as good as he was, and you will hear some music during this presentation of him singing in Japanese when he was in the occupation. and I think it was Osaka, Japan. Let's go to the next chapter. So now we start on the other side. Well, the other side means the other pages, easier for me to do, and so the pictures once again are going to be very mixed, but it's going to be very, very interesting, especially to the Piggott-related families, because a lot of these pictures have not been seen in years, if ever. This, 3 women: Edith, my father's sister; Jean, that's my mom; and Betts is what they called my Aunt Betty. Her real name was Elizabeth. We called her Aunt Betty, and Betts was the nickname. That was also at Slater Park. Slater Park was very close to Perrin Avenue and places that I was born. I can't remember the name of the street. I think it was Rose something. What's interesting is on the far left is my Aunt Edith. And my Aunt Edith was kind of reminded me of Lucille Ball. She was always happy. She was a really fun lady. She died early of a cancer. I'm not sure if it was breast cancer or of ovarian cancer. She was not able to have a baby because she was 9 or 10 and she was running through a field and she fell. She happened to fall upon a stick that hurt her reproductive system, and she lived with it and knew about it, but she ended up marrying Cooley and gave birth to one of my favorite cousins, who became a state trooper in Texas for many years and then was hit by a trailer truck while he was on duty. In the middle, that's my mother. On the far right is my Aunt Betty. All pretty women, classy. My Aunt Betty, who married Joseph or Buddy Maliandi, was one of my favorite aunts. I'm not sure what this means. It says hitched, May 4th, 1944, Greenville, North Carolina. And I don't know what this is. This is piquant. I don't get it. Next, my Aunt Edith again. The second one in line is my grandfather. I'm going to use a pointer to make it a little easier for you. My Aunt Betty, Slater Park, and Mom. That's my grandmother. So we've got Edith, my grandfather, and my Aunt Betty, and we have Mom. Mom, Carrie. Mom, that means Carrie Jean Piggott, or what was Carrie Brown. Okay. My father took this picture. Although there was turmoil in that Piggott family, I heard my grandfather was pretty rough on some of his siblings, rather his, and that too, but his children. He was very typically British origin, Bobby policeman origin blood, and had a temper tantrum. But generally the family was okay. It's just the way it was then. This is what it says, Mom down here, but that means my dad's mom, and that's my dad's dad. That was again on Slater Street, near Slater Park, I'm sure. Down below it says Dad, Mom, and me on Francis Avenue, right here. These are hard to make out, but you have to understand back that time, my grandfather was extremely successful as a textile manager, and then the stock market crashed, and it caused families to have hardships. They'd have to move around a lot. And this one is a little confusing because it looks so good. That's my grandfather George. I think he was George Owen, like my brother's middle name. And that's my grandmother. Yep, that's her. Providence, Rhode Island. Not bad looking. He looks very typically British. And this is back to Parent Avenue. Again, this skips around a little bit, but that's cool. And that's my father and my grandmother once again. And over here, glasses. My mother must have put on a pair. Rebel McGee. See, he had all these nicknames from my mother. I kissed you on the porch seat. And speaking of porch, my pooch is going nuts again. I'll be back. Over here is a picture of Slater Park again. It's my Aunt Betty. And my dad and my Aunt Betty were very close. Over here, this was Mother's Day. Doesn't have the date, but it's in Poughkeepsie, New York, and that's where my Aunt Edith settled. I think, my grandmother lived there too. But Aunt Betty, Uncle Bert, my Aunt Edith, and Grandma Piggott. Carrie Jean we're talking about. Over here, Dad, Lucky Piggott. No idea what that meant. He's got bell bottoms on. He's got a nice suit. He's standing in front of a car that might have been Better Days. It was on Parent Avenue. It says Dad, Lucky Piggott. That's George Piggott, my grandfather. Over here, it says, phew, you got me. It looks like my grandfather with my mother pregnant. I don't know. Then over here, Rebel. That's my mother again on the left. And over here is Aunt Betty. They were very close. Carolyn, who married Ronald Knapp. That was Carolyn Piggott. She was the oldest of the 5. It went Carolyn, then, if I'm not mistaken, my father, then Aunt Betty, then Aunt Edith, then Uncle Bert. And my Aunt Carolyn was a lady, 100%. She was always good to me. She married a farmer, basically, with horses and strawberries. And she and my dad got along fine, too. She had a great sense of humor, tremendous. This is my Aunt Edith, early days. You can see the resemblances. And Betty Piggott. Betty V. I don't know what the V means. Probably Victoria. I don't know. And this was when she announced that she was, there was an article announcing that she was going to get married to Joseph Maliandi, Uncle Buddy of the Navy. Pretty interesting stuff. That was her pre-marriage photo. And then this is some kind of, looks like a obituary of United States Marine Lieutenant Charles R. North of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. He must have been somebody that knew my dad. It says Dad again. That's got to be my grandfather, and I sure don't recognize him there. And obviously he was on the water fishing, as was my mother down below, labeled once again Rebel. Polly picture not visible there, but it was visible in the one that I had put down before. That was my Aunt Polly, and I guess she had caught something small. I'm not sure what it was, and she claims it was a fish. At least that's what the thing says. I'm not sure I got this yet. I need to check it. Alright, Blanco. Me, Bert Weiland, Bull. These are all friends. You saw pictures before. These are all people who were apparently in my father's military gallery. This is in Oceanside, California. Over here, Tiger, Nick, Sam. This sounds like his platoon to me. Bull, Beto, Boat Basin, once again, Oceanside, California. That looks right. That's the Air Liaison Port Basin. My father actually became a pilot in war. They did put him into the volcanoes to direct bombing missions, but he did, in addition to being a United States Marine, go to flight training school and got his license to fly some planes, and I can't be honest to tell you that I know what. Other people, obviously, from his platoon. See, this is important to me because my father had very close friends that he made that lasted for life, being a member of the United States Marine Corps. These are the names. That was a Marine camp. And there are more names of people here. Sam Wolf Stump. That's Marine Camp 2. No name. And Marine Camp. Paris Island. True. That's where my grandson just graduated from an enlistee to a private. He is in the Marine Corps, and this was a friend of his, Mick, and that is Paris Island. Paris Island has been around for about 100 and some odd years at least as the main training grounds, presenting Dante's Inferno for some people. If you make it through that, you can do anything. And then over here, that's really interesting. Those are other names, and again, these are soldiers that my dad knew, as are this. But in here it says Bert. Now, I don't know why, but it says Bert at the boat basin. So sometime in there, see what happened was a lot of the kids tried to enlist when Pearl Harbor took place. That's what my dad did, and I think my brother did shortly after, but he was scorned, and I think he was tainted by my grandparents because they always held up my dad, who became a Marine, in his face, and he failed, so he ended up having to go to the Army. I don't know how long he was in for, but that caused some of the frictions in the family. Mick, Paris Island. See, these are Paris Island shots. That's wild. Many years ago, look at that. Must have been friends. Mick, Paris Island, and baby. I don't know. Okay. More Paris Island charts with different names. Nick, Blaney, more Paris Island shots. Marine Camp. These are mostly my father's, but remember, he's the one that built this album. More. Me, Sam, Lee, Harv, Wayne, Carl, the beach. The day before. Oh my God. XMA. Celebrating new rates. I don't know what that means. I'm just sharing what I got. Frank, another friend of his, another tough Marine, talks about the very bad battle for Mount Suribachi. Now that is major, because that's where my father was, and it was one of the worst battles in World War II. One of the decisive ones. And I think I'll freeze that long enough on the other video that you might be able to read it. There's way too much information in here that was reflected by my father and experiences that he had. That's probably why he sometimes was a little rough as a dad. I kind of took the brunt of it, but we overcame it all. It's the way life goes. Tomato plants and a rebel, Belhaven, North Carolina. Oh my God. Belhaven, North Carolina, that's where they lived for a long time, and I know that my family, on my mother's side, had tobacco farms for a while and also had regular farms, and Belhaven was an important place where other relatives were around. And if I'm not mistaken, that's where the two women of color used to raise me. When I went to North Carolina, I would get down and stay with them. One was called Annabelle, the other one was called Fanny. They were gracious and beautiful ladies of color that made me believe that all people were created equal when I was a little boy. It's on Polly here, and that says Jean, and man, I'm confused, but I think it's my mother. I don't know. I don't think that would be her mother, but it's not labeled correctly. My mother. My father was always taking pictures of my mother. He was totally in love 100%, and now he's got a new nickname, Gypsy. My mother, and at that time married my wife. Now, I know that I believe he got married before he went to Iwo Jima and then came back, but he went to the occupation. He thought he was going home after Iwo Jima and the battle was done, but he ended up stepping on the shores of Japan, where he managed a hotel in Osaka for a year before he came home. Names of various people again in the Marines. Wheeler's Mick, Reed, Amazing Santana, Red Wilson. These are all Marine shots. Now, this is an important part of our history, because if it were not for my dad, this country wouldn't have a pot to put apple cider in. May and Josephina, don't know who they are. Coffee beans, must have been on the island. A church there. And outrageous candles. I don't understand that either. A monument to a captain my dad knew. It says Healer Girl. I can't tell if that's my mother or not. It looks like her. And celebration activities. My mother and father are involved with that kind of stuff after the war, like minstrel shows, which is frowned on these days by people of color because they had the blackface stuff going on, which I did perform at, believe it or not, as a little boy. I never had anybody that did anything that was injurious to people of color, except that they did have people on the stage, and it appeared that way to a lot. Don't know the details. That's the girl from Hawaii. He called it a real Hawaiian girl. Same visions of Hawaii. Well, as I scroll through the remaining of the book, I still have some little pictures that I need to show you. Oh, more. Yeah, Iwo Jima, oh my lord. Look at this. Look at this. This is direct war shots from World War II, guys. That's the real thing. That's what my father went through. He came back scarred, he came back angry, but he managed to raise a very, very intelligent son, George. All right, I got a break for you for a second. This is going to look very small to you on camera. I'll read it to you. I have the picture stored at the end of the presentation. The pictures, this is what my dad kept this journal throughout the war. And these are places that he traveled or was at. And apparently some of the pictures are missing, but these are the list of pictures. Boot camp on Parris Island, South Carolina. Cherry Point Air Station, North Carolina, probably Flight Jax. I'm thinking that's Jacksonville Radio School. Yes, he became a radio specialist. Cherry Point Air Station. And this is Norfolk Radio. Dallas, Texas Flight Training. Flight Prep again in Louisiana. Pre-flight school, Athens, Georgia. They moved around this Marine. Primary flight, Memphis, Tennessee. West Coast, Miramar, California. Little Tokyo, Camp Pendleton, California. My father was moving around a lot. Staff sergeants do that. And there are so many more here that are really amazing. And then, of course, Pearl Harbor, where he visited. And the same here. These are listings that he had of things. I do remember one story that was kind of interesting. My father was in flight school and was doing terrible. And he went up with a very old, grouchy, almost drunk man, he told me. And he watched my father take off and land. And then he simply said, "Oh, we're going to go up again. I'm going to show you how to land the plane right." And what was happening was the old man found my father as he was coming in, looking slightly down and to the left through the windows, when he should have been using his peripheral vision to make the match to land. And he aced it after he met this man. Let's do some of the stills. This is a picture from 1909. And on the left side, believe it or not, is my grandmother. And on the right side is her daughter Edith. That doesn't make sense. I have to check that. Okay, yes, it is Edie. My aunt Edith, the one that that would be my great aunt. It's my grandmother's sister, Edith. There was my dad's sister was Edith as well. But this is my grandmother, Carrie Brown at the time, and her sister, Edith Brown. This is a rather rare photo. My dad, after the Marine Corps, playing his tipple, 10-string instrument similar to what Arthur Godfrey played. On the right, it's my Grandma Carrie. On the left, my mother, sitting as they often did in front of a piano, and they sang. She had a loudest voice I ever heard. It was awful. It was like a screech, but she sang her heart out. My father and mother sang great. This is a canceled and partially ripped envelope. You'll notice in the right-hand corner there was no postage. When you were sending things from the Marine Corps, you didn't have to pay any postage. At the time, my father was a corporal. It was Corporal Thomas A. Piggott, United States NFPS. And he was at the time studying and at a normal college, Louisiana State. And he wrote a letter to his mom. At that time, they were living on Baldwin Street. And but like I said, the downfall of the stock market and the stock market crash caused my family to move around a lot of different places. Well, this is a strange one here. United States Marine Corps. From that envelope I just showed you, mom and dad and kids. I don't know who the other kids are, probably the brothers and sisters. This was a letter written by my father as he was involved with the military. This will be this will be short since things are in a veritable turmoil around here. We have our finals in navigation tomorrow, a 4-hour examination, and most of our time this weekend has been spent preparing to depart for our next phase of training. Oh, happy day. I don't think I told you I received a letter from John Chodorowski. Don't know who that is. He's already soloed and he's getting along fine in Fort Worth, Texas. He must have done some of his flight training there. He loves it and says I will too. Mom, you will probably receive this after your anniversary. I just want you and Dad to know I was thinking of you and I hope that it was a happy one. You've probably received your presents from Carol by now, so I'll say no more except for God bless both of you. As soon as I get through writing this, I'll drop a few more lines to Aunt Betty. Well, I call it Aunt Betty, to Betty. I've written to Jean, and also I received a letter from Arnold. Don't know who that is. The first in a long time. Hopefully won't bust it up, but time will care for that. Somebody got hurt. Alright, so he will be 300 miles from me when I get to write again. That's all for now, folks. God bless you and keep them flying. Love to all. Al. See, you got to remember too that my father's real name was Al. He was born Alton Thomas Piggott. He hated the name Alton. Hated it, hated it, hated it. He changed his name legally while he was in the Marine Corps to Thomas A., keeping Alton, but not as his first name. I'll let you know immediately of any new developments that might occur. Love to all. Al. Very unusual to see something from my father that says Al. It's a VJ dinner celebration of some kind, August 1945. I was born in 47, so this might have been at the end of the war. That's what I'm thinking. You are kidding. I have no idea. There are numerous pictures on this little sticker picture thing that was done back then from the negatives. It is loaded. I cannot tell you much about them. I've been looking at them every which way. I see some people in here. I believe that's my father. I see some kind of a transport. That's my father. And numerous other pictures that you would have to have, see it up straight and up close. in order to get a handle on what they all might mean. I thought this was interesting, Christopher Bottomley. This was issued when my father was under Major Manfred Pacus. It's the Ten Commandments for Success in the Armed Forces of the United States. Okay? Obey orders honestly, cheerfully, and conscientiously. Do your duty on time, all the time. Practice self-control and self-denial always. Be considerate of others. Be willing to give before you take. Be neat and clean in your person as well as your speech. Don't find fault, lest you find time for little else. Whatever you do it just a little better than anyone else. Resolve to win, always on the alert for victory. Be true to yourself, your comrades, your God, and your country, and be faithful and dependable, ever mindful of your sacred privilege in serving your country. Major Manfred Pacus. And that was copywritten by him in 1942. Well, except for a few money artifacts which are meaningless, that's the end of this portion of the presentation. It follows with pictures. Music that you're going to hear is going to be my mother singing. I'll try to label them as best I can. My father singing in Japanese as well as in English, and related things. It's an interesting chapter in the history of the Pigots or anybody related to them. I hope that you enjoyed my efforts to bring it to you. And God bless America, God bless the United States Marine Corps, our service members, and our family in this difficult time in 2020 with the coronavirus and the issues that are related to it. I all wish you well. God bless.
山の寂しい湖に一人来たのも悲しい心夢の痛みに耐えかなって昨日の夢と咲き進せる古い手紙の薄煙チャイナタンゴ夢の歌紅の提灯ゆらゆらと風に揺れ歌に揺れ揺れて消えゆくシナの街チャイナタンゴ雪のよチャイナタウン夢ほのぼのと風に揺れ歌に揺れ揺れて消えゆくシナの街風に揺れ歌に揺れ揺れて消えゆくシナの街